Hey, so now that you've written the body of your paper, which hopefully follows the order of your thesis and supports the meaning of your work, the next step for you is to write the conclusion. And the conclusion is going to recap your paper. After you write your conclusion, then you write your introduction, and then finally the title if you haven't already done so. All right, this is how you write the conclusion. It's a formula. Follow the formula and you'll be fine. The first sentence of your conclusion is going to restate the thesis in words that reflect the thesis but don't obviously repeat it. Then you're going to have three subsequent sentences. The first sentence will summarize the first topic. The second, sentence 3 will summarize the second topic. Sentence 4 will summarize the third topic. And then finally, your fifth sentence is going to recap everything. You're going to summarize the literal work if possible, and then extend. Definitely you want to do this. You want to extend the sentence beyond the work itself to the broader meaning of the work. We'll look at this when we look at a couple of samples. After you write your conclusion, you're going to write your introduction. And this should be easier now that you know what your paper is about. You want to use your introduction to address what you're going to write about in your paper. So don't introduce anything in your introduction that you don't cover in your paper. That wouldn't make sense. The first sentence, you want to have a hook that could be a quote from the book, a quote from one of your sources, a fact about your author, a quote from your author, or anything that speaks generally about the author, book, the meaning, or the time frame specific to the book. Really try to avoid, I would say, absolutely no broad generalizations like, oh, in the world today we see. Sentence 2, if you didn't introduce the work and the author in the first sentence, you want to do that now. You can expand on the first sentence and the quote that you said. Don't just assume people are going to understand what it means. You can add a historical context. And then sentence 3 is really where you start to narrow your focus. It's called the hinge sentence, and it turns the reader's attention to what you'll be covering in your thesis. Here's a good place to provide a one-sentence summary here. And then sentence 4, you use this sentence to add another detail that will lead you into the thesis. And then sentence 5 is your thesis statement. The title, it's best to use a title that encompasses what you will be covering in your paper. You could use a line or phrase from your paper or phrase that best summarizes it. Subtitles work well. Keep the title in Times New Roman 12 font and don't bold it. The other thing that I think I might even add right here is that pay attention to your transitions when you're putting your work together. Make sure each paragraph transitions from the last, and each topic as well. All right. You remember how we did that with the Scarlet Letter paper where we saw how each topic transitioned one into the next. Okay, so let's take a look at the Scarlet Letter. So we see that the thesis says, by constructing the Scarlet Letter in a colonial Puritan setting and using indirect characterization and symbolism, Hawthorne dramatizes the struggles of his characters and reinforces the immediate and enduring consequences of sin for an individual and society. So let's notice that the student has 3 topics here: setting, indirect characterization, and symbolism. The first sentence of the conclusion follows this formula exactly. And of course I have my phone going off here, but it's before school so I don't need to turn it off. All right. What we have here is through the strategic application of, look at this, setting, characterization, and symbolism, Nathaniel Hawthorne successfully amplifies the meaning of the Scarlet Letter, and that here is a place where the student restates the meaning of the work, emphasizing the lasting consequences of sin in societies that tend to criticize others without using the same scrupulous judgment on themselves. Okay, so here you have now that this student has expanded the work in her paper, she's able to add a stronger meaning of the work. Okay. By plaguing his main character with the consequences of her impurity, Hawthorne addresses an imperfect period. There's the setting in American history and reflects the human condition. Hester's refusal to succumb to society's limitations, that's her indirect characterization, allows her to assert her individual agency, that's another way of saying indirect characterization, and come to terms with her sin. And then furthermore, by deepening the concealed nature of the symbolic Scarlet Letter, there it is, Hawthorne emphasizes that Hester's most enduring wound is internal. Okay, so do you see how each one of these had a sentence that wrapped up each one of the topics? And then here's your broader meaning of the work. Members of American society, from colonialism to the postmodern era, have been continuously exposed to the same feelings of humiliation, isolation, and remorse that Hester Prynne experienced. This innate empathy for those who suffer the ongoing public consequences of private sins magnifies the depth and lasting influence of Hawthorne's work. So you have a really nice paper there. Conclusion. Each literary element in the thesis is highlighted in the conclusion with the corresponding colors along with the meaning of the work to make it easier. Now let's go back through this introduction. Leo Marx, this is the hook, former professor at Amherst, once expressed that the Scarlet Letter is the most economical, the most thoroughly composed and unified of our great American novels. Okay, there's your quote, your hook from an outside source. Then she goes on to expand that. A defining attribute of the Scarlet Letter is its derivation in American heritage, a heritage immersed with societal flaws that nevertheless serves as our country's foundation. Now, notice how not only the student expanded on this sentence, but also talked about something that she's going to address in her paper. Nathaniel Hawthorne reflects on a culture that precedes his own generation, yet his themes are evident in individuals, families, and communities throughout the American experience from colonialism to the postmodern era. Now this works because the student does talk quite a bit about the setting in the first topic. To accomplish this profound effect, Hawthorne strategically implements various literary devices. This is a nice little fourth sentence. It's all right. It doesn't really add much to the introduction. It works. Please don't copy this because it's pretty vague. See if you can add something else. And then there you go. You have your thesis statement. I have some other samples here. I do have a word count after most of these so that you can see how many words each one of these takes up. Remember that the body of your paper should be 1,800 words, and then your introduction and conclusion together should be 250 to 300, and that should get you to 6 pages. Again, another quote from an outside source for here. Let's see what this one says. Gustave Flaubert, that's the author in his own words who said something. Here's no quote, but just Spokane Indian author Sherman Alexie drenches reservation blues and Native American mysticism, blurring the lines between past and present. That's just the student's own analysis of the work. So that's a nice way to begin it. And then here's a quote from the author that he gave, author Mark Twain, that he gave in a speech. Okay, just want you to know that these, I'm scrolling back up here, I would say that Scarlet Letter, The Theory of Disorder, and Arcadia, and then I would say Reservation Blues. I would say these three follow this conclusion formula exactly, and you can see how that works. Okay, I hope that this helps. And right now it's what is it, December, today is December 4th, and today is the day that you should be checking into your intros and your conclusions, and you should have been assembling your paper this weekend in a perfect world, in a perfect utopian, not dystopian world. All right. If you have any questions, as always, come see me.